Hi everybody, my name is Tracy and I am an Australian girl from Perth, but I currently live in northern Italy, just outside of Turin. So I'm a certified moonologer and moon manifestation coach, and I help women to reconnect with the moon cycles and ditch the hustle and grind business paradigms that they can, embrace ease and flow for and become a chillpreneur basically, while working with the moon so that they can succeed on their own terms. And when I first discovered Denise, just at the very beginning of the pandemic, before I became a lucky bee, after I read Get Rich Lucky Bitch, I was a nurturer, maverick, and accumulator. But then last year, when I joined Money Breakthrough and did it again when we started SMA last year, ruler had come up and overtaken accumulator. So still nurturer as number one, but it had sort of dropped down. Maverick had come up a little bit and ruler has stepped up to the plate. So it was interesting to see how much that had changed in 12 months of just, doing money boot camp type, or not doing boot camp, but reading the books and doing the things on my own, and then coming into boot camp and going from there. So yeah, so that's me.
So what I thought we would start with is, when you first did the quiz, when you first did the SMA, were you surprised to hear that you were a nurturer? But how did those results make you feel? Was it good, bad? Did you feel called out, or did you absolutely 100% know? And Anna, we're going to start with you and then go around. But what was your first reaction to finding out that you are a nurturer?
I definitely resonate with that too, Sarah. I was not surprised in the slightest when mine came back as a nurturer. I'm also a Cancer sun sign, or a Cancer star sign. And so it was just like, well, obviously. And of course, but what was really good about it though was that looking at the traits of, like putting everybody else first to the detriment of yourself. And I was like, oh, this is why I keep repeating these patterns over and over and over again. And then looking at, okay, it's about boundaries and like getting better at bringing in and enforcing boundaries and things like that really did help. Obviously, it's still a work in progress because, the work is never done. But I was not disappointed. In fact, I probably resonated with it most and almost ignored all of the other archetypes. And then when it was like, so what are your top three? And I'm like, oh, was I meant to look at the other ones? Because I just was like, oh, nurture. Yep, that's me, obviously. Well, just don't worry about anything else. So it's been interesting for me also to explore how the other different archetypes also play into that and modify it as well.
So my next question is then, and we're going to start with Sarah on this one, is when it comes to the business world, have you felt, or how have you felt alienated from the business world? Because, a lot of groups, a lot of courses really value the more ruler, maverick type of entrepreneur. And where have you found that doesn't work? Do you feel lost, or do you feel a bit alienated? Or have you had business coaches that have made you feel like you needed to change yourself to fit in or to succeed as well? So I'd love to hear your thoughts about that. And Sarah, you're up first on that one.
Oh my goodness, Sarah, you're literally taking all the words out of my mouth. I feel like we're clearly very in sync here. Same kind of thing for me too. I have felt a lot of resistance within myself as well when other coaches or mentors or like courses have very much tried to box it, particularly when it's a very masculine focused box about like it has to be all action and it has to be all, like Sarah said, very process oriented, and it can only be done one way. It has to be cookie cutter template stuff. And I'm like, but I don't fit any of that. Like that doesn't work for me. It doesn't feel good for me. And I have really struggled even with things like doing the I help who with what, so that they can, like even those formulas where other coaches like, oh, it's too airy fairy, like your ICA isn't good, or like whatever. And I'm like, well, but they're the people that I want to work with. And it's just, it has been a real struggle from that point of view, until I got to the point, like Sarah did, of recognizing, like when I started working with the moon, that the waning part of the cycle is all the internal work. It is the slowing down. It is allowing yourself to have that quiet time and that space to do the inner work, to do the shadow work, to do whatever, and actually allow yourself to slow down in order to speed up. That slowing down doesn't mean that you're stopping. It doesn't mean that you're not taking action. It's just a different kind of action, and it's okay. And that took quite a long time, especially as a nurturer, because when people can't see what's going on when it's going on inside you. And so they're sitting there going, well, she's just doing nothing all day, or she's just, like sitting on the couch or Facebooking or like scrolling or whatever. And you're like, doing things, you just can't see them. And it then also ties into, I guess, the negative side of the nurturer, in that it brings up those feelings of not being enough, or then having to bend over backwards to please other people because you're not being productive enough, or you're not doing the things that need to be done to make other people happy, or whatever, like to meet other people's expectations. So yeah, I hope I answered the question, because I forgot what I was supposed to be answering now.
But I want to go actually to baby nurturer you for a moment, because often our archetypes show up so clearly when we're kids in so many ways, either little things that you did, or nicknames you had, or things you were teased about as a kid. So I would love to hear from each and every one of you. And Tracy, we're going to start with you first. Like, how did that show up for you as a little baby nurturer?
That's a really good question, actually. I came from a really close family where the money was tight, but we weren't poor, but we had access to, my dad worked in the airline industry. He used to work for Ansett. So we traveled, and we had access to nice things, but not because we could afford the things. And so, but it was, my whole family upbringing was very much about, like, if we did have money, my parents would help other people all the time, and would almost to the point of like giving it all away. So I think nurture was also very strong in my family. So as I grew up, it was what I was exposed to. And I remember very clearly when I was in my late teens, that my mum had a go at my dad because he'd gone out, and one of their long-time family friends who had a son the same age as my brother, he'd gone out and he'd bought them a new computer because she was a single mom. Her husband had died many years earlier, and the internet was new then, because it's back in the boomer days. And mum was kind of like, why would you go and buy them a new computer when we can't even afford to like buy ourselves a new computer kind of thing. But it was that whole wanting to and desiring to be of service, even though they couldn't really afford it, if that makes sense. So yeah, I think it's just always been a pattern for me that had been modeled. And then personally, so a couple of years after that, I was working for my dad in a business. The business ended up going under because of the business partners. And my parents were in a really tight financial situation. And it was one of those things where, like, I went and got a personal loan and gave the money to my parents to pay off debt. I owned a couple of investment properties at the time because my parents got me into, like buying an apartment when I was 18. But I had gone back to studying, and while I could afford to pay the mortgage payments when the rate, land and water rates came in, I didn't have spare money lying around, and my parents didn't have the money. So I ended up selling the properties. And again, I ended up giving my parents money. I did other things with it too, like I bought a car and whatever, but it was that whole, I gave money to my parents to pay down debt or pay my sister's school fees, or, again, not keeping anything and not holding on to anything for the future. So not only I had 2 properties, I came out of it with like $90,000. And within less than 12 months, I had a car. And that was it. So I guess that's how being a baby nurturer has shown up for me.
And I think there's that edge for the nurturer too, of where does that tip into martyrdom in your business, where you burn yourself out either through lending people money or giving people money, getting your own credit score in trouble, jeopardizing your own retirement income, jeopardizing your own assets and investments. And, that edge of martyrdom sometimes can manifest in bitterness, resentfulness, and suppressed rage. And it has to go somewhere, right? It has to go somewhere. So I want to hear, what changes have you made in your business, even if it took you a long time, even if it took you a million lessons to get it? What baby step changes did you need to make after, kind of being not slapped in the face with some of this information, but just seeing it so clear how painful some of these overgiving tendencies can be? And I think we're back to Kate, if we go back in order of, what did you shift? What did you change? What was the moment of pain where you went, okay, I've got to change it?
Okay, so I'm resonating with something Anna said about like not making like lots and lots of money or anything like that yet, but I did, as a result of working through boot camp and SMA and whatnot, I did raise my prices last year on some of my basically all of my programs, but I did them at different times. So my Moonology readings have had 2 price increases. My coaching program has had a price increase. I have been doing better at trying not to offer discounts in the first place, or automatically offering discounts, because at one stage, I guess I was afraid, like I'd put the price up. And so I was like, oh, my service is now this, but I'm offering a 50% discount. And so without even waiting for them to say, okay, no problems, I was just like, oh, but like you can have it at half price. So I've been getting better with that. One of the things I did that I'm still working on, but I started implementing profit first. And that was huge in terms of money boundaries and making sure that I wasn't just giving away everything, that I was putting away money to pay taxes and things like that, which then gave me the peace of mind and took away a lot of anxiety from the perspective of worrying, like, am I going to have enough when it comes to tax time? And I'm like, no, it's okay. I've got that separately. It doesn't mean that the money that's in the accounts I can spend in doesn't just magically evaporate. Clearly, my energetic zero is still got a lot of work to be done. But putting into place some of those boundaries has definitely been a huge game changer, even psychologically, knowing that I don't have to worry about it from that point of view. And it makes me feel like I'm more in control, because I know what money I then have that I could spend on myself, or that I could spend on my kids, or spend on the groceries, or contribute to So saving up for a housing deposit and things like that, and actually being able to see that growing in a separate account that is just for that thing, instead of feeling like it's all in one big bucket together and it all just like, Denise asked a question, I think at the beginning of boot camp, about what does our money container look like? And mine was a wicker washing basket. Those fucking things have holes all through them, don't they? No wonder it's all pissing out everywhere. I really liked that Denise described hers as like a football stadium with like an open roof, so it can just like keep getting more. And I'm like, why did I pick a washing basket? Like, clearly not thinking big enough. So yeah, but then also putting in place boundaries and getting better boundaries with clients, as some of the other girls said, like way over delivering in my things. People pay for an hour of coaching sessions that blew out to 2.5 hours. On my sales calls, I stopped turning those into coaching sessions. And that was in part because I've been working with a coach who was like, get them to do most of the talking. Like, you ask them to tell you, like, what are their struggles? What do they want to get out of your time together? Like, what would it change for them, so that it wasn't actually me then answering their problems or giving them the answers on the call, which then meant that I was able to then also keep those to, I was allotting 45 minutes to that. I was able to stick to that 45-minute time frame, rather than, again, it ending up being a full-on, 1 or 2 hour coaching, or just this session that would just go on and on and on. And then I would never close the sale at the end of it, because I'd already fixed everything for them. So I have been working on that in terms of boundaries. I have been also setting boundaries about the kinds of clients that I do and don't want to work with moving forward as well. Because one of the clients that I had, that I have worked with a couple of times, is very energetically draining, because she isn't in a place where she wants to take responsibility, but then I feel like she then puts it back on me because she's not getting the results that she was paying for. So she wasn't getting her money's worth, which was then causing me to over deliver more. Like, I got to the end of a 4-month paid program and then offered her 6 more weeks of accountability, because she told me she didn't get value when I showed up every week and did the things, but she was the one who wasn't doing the things that we talked about in the session. She wasn't implementing it between the sessions, and we're constantly going from crisis to crisis. But there was me, massively over delivering, because I was afraid she was going to give me a bad review, or that she would ask me for a refund or whatever, because I failed her. So boot camp has definitely helped with that, and knowing that that's a part of the nurturer thing. Discovering that burnout was actually one of the biggest risks and challenges for nurturers was like one of those mind blow moments where I was just like, okay, so this is why I end up feeling massively depleted and burnt out, is because when I'm having these times where I'm so overgiving all the time, coincides with when I feel like I start upper limiting and I start doing all of these other things, because I'm not wearing my oxygen mask first, because I'm trying to do all of the things and be everything to everyone all at the same time. And instead of doing any of the things I want to do or that bring me joy, I'm too busy trying to do everything for everyone else. And then I'm not in my zone of genius, or I'm not doing the things that make me happy or are in ease and flow, or then make me money. Then everything starts drying up, like the money starts disappearing, like the fountain is fucking dry.
So if anyone has to go, let me know. Otherwise, I'd love to go just for another couple of minutes, because I would love each of you to give a message to fellow nurturers who are thinking about doing SMA. And, so if anyone needs to go, just type it in and you can go first. Otherwise, we'll go from Anna, Sarah, Tracy, Kate. And yeah, beautiful, beautiful so far. We've loved it.
So as a nurturer, I think one of the things that's amazing about SMA is that it puts you in a room with other nurturers where you suddenly realize that the things that you're experiencing, you're not alone in. And when you come together and you have these conversations, so many of the things are happening for other people in slightly different ways that they manifest. But it reminds me of when my kids were little and you'd go to mother's group and you would think that all of the things that were happening to you were only happening to you until you got into a room with these other moms and you started talking about all of the problems that you were having at home, and everyone else is like, this is, I'm having that same problem too. And you realize that you're not alone, that there are other people, and seeing how those people are dealing with those issues, problems, challenges, inspires you to have ideas on how you can work through those things as well. But one of the things I really loved the most about SMA was learning to understand the challenges and the gifts, and that how I could leverage those gifts. So for me as a nurturer, learning how I could really harness using my innate ability to deliver really great value to people in ways that wasn't going to just be about over delivering constantly or burning myself out, but how I could do it in more constructive ways and ways I could also give back, where it didn't have to just be financially, how I could volunteer within my local community and get involved in other ways that didn't require me to constantly be taking the money out of my pocket to do the things. I could do it in other ways. And it really highlighted for me that being a nurturer wasn't a bad archetype, that it wasn't the worst archetype, because I know there are so many people even who look at the SMA archetypes and they're like, oh, nurturer, like that must be the worst because you're just giving everything away all the time. But it's actually a bit of a superpower when you know how to use it properly. And one of the beautiful things I think about being somebody who cares about people and who cares about wanting to make the world a better place is that when you can put those boundaries in place and when you can still serve people, but from a place where you are looking after yourself first and making sure that you can serve and be of the highest benefit to everyone, is that the nurture skill manifests as an ability to really see and hear your clients and the people that you work with in ways that make them feel valued, because it's actually part of our skill set, because it's our superpower. But we don't have to do that in a way that then leaves us feeling depleted and burnt out. So if you're considering joining SMA or wanting to learn how to be the most amazing, successful nurturer you can be, then, come and join Denise and the rest of us and learn how you can be amazing too.
So, are you a ruler, a connector, or a maverick? Hang on, maybe you're more of a romantic or a celebrity. Take the money personality quiz right now and find out which of the 8 money archetypes you are. And then I'm going to teach you how to profit from your strengths and make money in your business based on your natural personality. Click below and find out more.